Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another streaming session. This week I will be working on the wonderful WoW performer enforcer, Dorian Crowe. And Dorian is an interesting character. He was part of the box with second version of Pandora and Colette. And I made it a community choice a while ago. I posted on Facebook 4 pictures and asked people to pick which one they would like me to paint. So there was a metallurgist, McCabe to Dorian, and Butcher to the what's his face? Can't recall it now. The guild master. So anyway, there were 4 options, and Dorian got the vast majority of votes because 111 people reacted and 58 people voted Dorian. Second choice was 21, then 16, 15, so fairly close, but Dorian won by sweeping majority. And it is a wonderful miniature. Of course, that's not surprising because I generally think that Wood makes wonderful miniatures, but this is pretty unique design. It's like this, it has this look of utter disgust at everything that surrounds him. He's clothed in those feathers, has a disapproving glance, which is the name of one of his abilities, and uh, and yeah, that's the model I'll be working on. So a lot of purple because it's a dual keyword model, but I want to stick to Neverborn color schemes. So that's why I'm thinking the rough plan is to paint the inside of his clothes, the suit with very bright purple, maybe even magenta purple. Then the vest, maybe some warmer purple, pale skin for sure, because this is an incorporeal model, so essentially it's like a ghost. And then dark feathers, dark cloak with feathers. And I may be even able to finish the model over the stream tonight. Let's see how it goes. I'm definitely not going to rush things, just taking it at a leisurely pace. And I think I will, as as is my typical approach, I will start with the skin, then move on to the suit. So paint the interior details or just give a base coat to the suit that I will work on later on. Then paint the inside part of the cloak, then the feathers, and then all the other tiny details like he's holding a cigarette. Then he has this nice and elegant cane, which just screams paint me gold. And plenty of other smaller details on this one. I've just noticed a tiny, could it be a mold line? No, I think it's good. So I'll be starting with Galliman flesh, applied, maybe slightly watered down. I may need to grab a hairdryer later on because I will be applying a few layers over the whole miniature, but that will come in due course. For now, I'll just slightly thin down the Gallimon flesh, and actually, since I don't want to have a human-like skin, I will add a tiny drop of purple ink just to add, just already have this base coat with different colors than you would expect on a human face. So now I'm mixing Lamian medium with Gallimon flesh and purple ink till I get something that looks interesting enough. And I think I'm getting there. I'm just testing it on a blank sheet of paper. It's what I like to use to get a good reference. And yes, it's clearly not a human-like skin color that I'm getting straight away. This is a really, really nicely designed miniature with clearly visible facial details. And it's good. I just read up on the story in Malifaux Burns to find out who Dorian is. So even before Malifaux Burns, in the story of the Malifaux universe, there is an event where Crossroads 7 are giving a performance and it doesn't go well. I'm just looking. No, he's wearing gloves, so just the face. It doesn't go well because people just start freaking out and there is like this massive slaughter. There are tyrants, woes, neverborn. I mean, all sorts of chaos is unraveling, and Dorian is just chilling out in the corner, getting bored, not excited by how things are developing. And then when all the everything starts falling apart, he just casually walks out because it's boring. So that's his background story. Now let's do the hair. We just give them a dark black base coat to begin with. And once I have face done, it will be easier to switch to other larger elements. I like to paint the face early on. Just the reason is that it might be one of the smaller elements on the miniature, but it's definitely the element that draws the most attention. So when someone picks up the miniature or when I pick up my miniatures, I just immediately turn to the face. Seems like it's always this. In most cases, this would be the focal point. So knowing that, I want to get it done early on, just to make sure that I feel comfortable with the quality of the paint job, and I can move on to other elements. So right now it's just about giving a base coat. Those feathers will be dark, but not pure black. I want them to have this kind of gleam of purple, like this purple shine. I was just considering using some metallic dots on the clothing just to push this elegant look, but I'm not sure yet. I'll see where the painting process takes me. I mean, I really like the mixture I made for the face, and it already looks really, really neat. Let me just try to zoom in on it. I don't think I will stop here, but I like what I see already. Maybe I will move the lamp a bit closer. Yeah, that's a good look. And I'm just taking a look every now and then at the artwork in the app. Seems like he has some dark makeup. He's a performer after all. And the hair looks slightly purplish in the artwork. So that's what I'm going to get on with. And now one of the easier ways, if I like the base coloring, the base color which came on the miniature, So I will just add very bright flesh shade, luminous flesh, mix it in with the base color I used for the skin, and use it for some delicate highlights. Just want to make sure I get the good mix on the palette. My palette looks messy. But that's what you get if you use one palette for a long time. And my palette being a very old CD, it's covered with paint on both sides, so I don't even know at this point what was on that CD. And besides, who uses CDs these days? I don't think a lot of people do that. Just trying to get the best angle to get the sharp and focused view on the model. So I'm made sure that the paint has the right consistency. I mean, what feels right to me. Because I don't think there is such thing as right consistency. What I mean by right for me is water the thing down so that I can build up highlights gradually. And when the paint has slightly thinner consistency, it just allows me to build up those highlights comfortably, moving from darker shades to brighter. And I'm aiming for this purplish pale look for the skin here. Just don't want to apply paint over the details to make sure that they are visible all the time. It's going to be probably one of the most time-consuming elements on this model. One good thing to do is to just rotate the model and look at it from different angles to make sure you really build up those highlights all around the area, not only focusing on one view. It's easy to fall into this kind of trap that you make perfect highlights, but they look great just from one angle. And you want at least a couple of angles to ensure that it's applied properly. So I'm adding a little bit more of the bright skin tone. If the contrast become too much, so if it looks like the most recent highlight takes over too much, it's not the end of the world, because it can still be fixed with a quick application of glaze. Just making sure that the upper lip is highlighted as well. And I think I will now improve the shades under the eyes, so shades in the eye sockets. Just looking as a reference, seems like not a bad idea. Maybe I'll just paint the eyebrows first and slightly correct the hairline. It looks like his hair is like comb black. And I need to look at the point of reference again. And the eyebrows are really delicate on this one, so I don't want to overdo. Just a very, very thin line, applied with just the tip of the brush. And again, that's something that can be also fixed quickly. If it becomes too much, it's even a nice idea to use a bit of darker skin tone and kind of frame the area around the eyebrows just to lock them in better. Probably easiest way to thin them down. And the eye sockets. Now for the eye sockets, I think that going black could be a bit too extreme. So instead of black, I will use maybe Volupus pink or Magus purple. I'll go for Magus purple. Just to start putting some shade in there because it's not a very heavy color. It won't have immediate impact. And thanks to that, I can be more in control of the process. So I'm essentially just kind of flooding the area around the eyes. What I really want to do is to define the area well so that it's darker. And I still haven't made up my mind if I want to go with human-like eyes or just too white, some kind of glow effect. So I will decide as I continue. So maybe I will also use some of the purple alchemy and mix it with a slight touch of white. Not that much, just a tiny dot. And I want this nice pink rosy shade for the lips. Maybe even brighter than that. I have never really played. I've never put Pandora on the table, although I own enough miniatures to put her on the table, put the crew on the table. I just have never really been that interested in the play style of Pandora 1. I know that Pandora 2 is considered a top tier Neverborn master, and I'm definitely going to give her a go. I just need to paint a couple of miniatures to do that. Essentially I just need a few more sorrows because I have just two. I need aversions, I have none. And I probably also need, well, I definitely need the totem, the poltergeist, and I have this very, very old metal version of poltergeist, which I will paint at some point. But for now, I'm more excited about some other miniatures. Because during Gen Con, we made a larger order with a couple of guys from local meta. And last week it arrived, so I will probably pick up my part of the order later this week. And what I'm excited about from that order is Euripides too. Because I really, really enjoyed painting the first one. There is something that's really enjoyable about painting those large, colorful monsters. Nothing like a sip of fresh grapefruit juice to keep me going. Now the most challenging part, painting the eyes. So making sure that I get a very good tip on the brush. So I slightly water down the paint, just a little bit, twirl it around, make sure I get a good tip, and try to get the eyes right the first time. All right. Went okay with the left eye. Time for the right eye. Since I'm right-handed, I just need to turn it upside down. Just to get a good angle. Looks okay. It's this delicate stage where it's so easy to ruin everything by retouching. Looks fine. Now I will maybe apply a very, very thin glaze, but I'll let it dry. For now, it's good. I can even apply some gray on the hair. So I have this dark gray shade. I'm going to mix it with some black to get really dark gray hair. I mean, almost black. Now for lighter gray, at this point it's just dry brushing it in, and then I will give it a quick glaze of black mixed with purple, or just purple and then some black. Not sure if you can hear my cat snoring in the background. Hey, McBluff. Good day to you. Hope your week has started well. Working on Dorian today and having a boring conversation because that's what he does. He has a boring conversation. Good to know it's been alright. It's been pretty good for me. I mean a bit busy because last week didn't go as planned because I planned to be in Rome on a nice business trip, more like a party than a business trip. But traveling by plane these days is not that obvious because from my office there were around 30 people who were meant to travel, and due to flight cancellation, the airline needed to find alternative flights, and they just couldn't accommodate everyone. So I stayed behind, and since it was a company-wide trip, at least for the section of the company that I work with, I just got home and kept on working. And after the event, people came back on Monday to the office, and it's been like playing the catch-up game. It's pretty busy, but, but good. Good. Seems like things are falling into some kind of rhythm. I'm doing some painting. Yesterday, I actually painted Leviticus, the second version, which is a phenomenal miniature. The Pariah of Blood, the Horseman Leviticus. Really, really like that one. In fact, I just posted pictures of it on my Instagram earlier today. I made a really disgusting base. I mean, disgusting, it's like gory. Didn't plan for it to be that much, but well, it's like Leviticus walking in a pool of blood with bodies melting around him. So I think I'll just leave those with slight bluish glow, just so that there is enough of a hint that it's not human, and that's fine. Now for some Magus purple on the hair, or actually maybe something slightly darker. Maybe I'll go with Hive Dweller purple. So painting wise, yes, it's been steady. Hobby wise, I played one game, I believe, within the last 2 weeks. It was a league game. It was Titania 2 versus Misaki 1. Of course, I played Titania 2. It was my second game with Titania, with this version of Titania. Played against a good old buddy against whom I played a number of games already. They are typically highly competitive. Ended up in a 7-7 draw. And I made a number of mistakes. He made some mistakes, but when it came to the last activation, I could have denied him a point by just removing Shadow Marker. But I just forgot. My mind went blank and I forgot that you can actually easily remove those things. I'm just glad I didn't take Assassinate against Misaki because she can be hard to pin down. I mean, when you start hitting her, she cannot absorb that much, but it's about starting to hit her. Can't remember the last time. Hi there, Under Construction Paints. You scored 7 paints in any game of Malifaux. Well, in the latest gaining grounds, I would say it's easier. In the gaining, well, I think that we both played a very offensive game, and when both players play offensively, things just happen because there is just so much a given model can absorb. And when things start dying in game, just happens that points get scored. Although in tournaments, it's a bit harder because of the time constraints. Let's see, switch to different mode of light. That's better. So just the tips of at the back of the hair, just a quick redefinition of those hair sticking out towards the back. And the face is pretty much done. So that took me half an hour to get to this point. Let's see if I can get a clear look on that. It's a tiny face. Of course, I will put proper pictures on my Instagram, but before that happens, try to show as much of it here. And also we use this opportunity to kind of neaten up the area around the face, which absorbs some of the colors that I didn't intend to put there. So the skirt, the shirt, the color of the shirt. And that's probably it. And besides work, Malifaux, and hobby time, I've recently purchased an Audible subscription, so I get one audiobook per month, and this month I chose new novel by Stephen King, Fairy Tale. So far I've listened to like 20% of it. Good stuff. Definitely not a horror book, but a good, really enjoyable. So far so good. Looking back again, and the lovely gentleman. I think it's time to put some magenta in. So base goes the suit that he's wearing with magenta. Still thinking if I should do the pupils white, but they would lose a bit of this otherworldly look. But if I just place a tiny, tiny dot somewhere in the middle, I'll just try to get it locked in. Yeah, I think that's better. That kind of defines. Yeah, that's much better. All right, 10 people in the stream. Nice start. So welcome those of you who joined later. So tonight's stream is all about boring conversation, disapproving glances, and painting Dorian. Of course, the first Dorian that comes to mind is Dorian Gray and the infamous novel and picture. Hey, Doug. Good afternoon. Hope your Tuesday is a good one. And Dag, and to those of you who joined later, Dorian was the community choice. I put a poll, and people could vote by choosing the icon on Facebook, and Dorian got the vast majority. So as you can see, I'm going with the super bright magenta color on the suit, and the reason being the choice is because I want it very bright. I want a nice glowy color, which I can later on tweak slightly. Keep it either a bit brighter or darker, depending on how other colors around turn out. It's just the base coat. But I also want to make him look like this, a bit like those rock stars from, I guess, late 80s. That would be the kind of look I'm aiming for. Wow, my cat is snoring so loudly in the background. I'm sure you guys don't hear it because the camera or the speaker on the laptop, not sure where the sound is coming from. It's not that sensitive, but those are some snores that seem to communicate, don't wake me up before it's springtime. It already feels like autumn here. The days are still warm, but evenings and mornings are pretty cold. It's like 7 Celsius in the morning, even lower at night. Just a pinkish base coat. It's actually magenta, but turned out more pink than magenta, which is fine at this point, as it's still something to be modified in the next stages of the process. And I will use the same color on the vest, but the vest will definitely be somewhat different. Maybe a touch of blue or green. I don't know yet. And the tie would be like dark purple, maybe even black. No, black is a bit too much. It's just not very easy to paint this miniature when it's fully assembled because some sections there are really some deep recessed areas here. So getting paint on them will be a bit demanding, but I will make it work and try to do it in a way that allows you to follow what I actually do. So it looks like he's wearing fancy PJs now, but that's just the start. Again, taking a peek. It is quite pink, yeah. It's meant to be. The color is called quartz magenta, but I will definitely tone it down with mix it in with a bit of darker purple. But I just want to kind of define the main areas of the miniature by giving them base coat. That's my approach when I work with contrast paints on bright base coat, is to kind of define the main areas. And then once I have the overview of where different colors land, I feel more comfortable tweaking it further. And speaking of tweaking things, I will now use a very dark shade of purple, which is shyish purple, which is almost black. It's a contrast paint. It says purple, but it feels more like black. Just outlining the tie, the shirt will remain white. I will just get back to it later on. And now for this wonderful cloak that he's wearing, I'll just give it a very general wash of, I think Magus Purple will be a good starting point, because that will allow me to define the area nicely. And it's not a heavy color, so I can still easily tweak it and make it darker or brighter depending on what I feel like. So I'll start at the back. Yeah, it settles in nicely. I'm just trying not to apply too much. Make sure that the paint doesn't pool. Oh, and there is the part of the trousers I missed. We need to put some pink here, or magenta. And there I am, speaking about preaching, look at miniature from different angles and then rediscovering an angle which clearly shows that I just skipped the whole section of the leg. So now it's less of pink but more of purple. And Magus Purple is, well, it's decent starting point, as I said. Not too heavy, not too bright, clearly impacts the area. And all those feathers, I think I will pick them out individually. Because dry brushing works, yes, it gets the job done, but there is just so much you can do. It has its limitations. Because it's on smaller surfaces, it's just, you get to this point when you dry brush that you highlight the raised areas, then you want a slightly brighter shade, and you get only the brighter shade. The in-between color kind of disappears. So this will be like 80s disco color scheme. Yes, pink for sure. Now I'm okay giving a wash of purple to the shirt as well, because then I can use purple mixed with white to bring it back to white shade, and that way the overall purple pink composition will be maintained. So going all over the model. And the nice thing about contrast paint is that if you just want the miniature painted, you can literally do that in half an hour. Get a solid look on the model, tabletop quality, tournament legitimate, because in general terms, for tournaments, it's required to have 3 colors on a miniature, so painting at least 3 different elements in different colors, not just putting blob of paint and 2 stripes of different color. And for me, so personally, the contrast paints or the speed paints, whatever you use, are good tool for working with brighter their colors, and they are quite interactive. Yeah, I try to make them work. Yes, and speed paints, I have like several of them. I don't think I have all, but probably most of them. They are a bit different than contrasts, but I like them and I will definitely be using. I've already, in fact, used some of them on this model, but the bottles are much better. So the standard dropper bottle, and they seem to have a slightly, well, less matte, more bright finish, more of a rather brighter finish than the GW ones, and they're way cheaper, which is significant because, well, let's face it, it's not a cheap hobby, but if you can pay approximately half of the price that you pay for a more expensive product, which gives you a similar result, then the choice is not that difficult. Rehydrating? No, not really. No issue with them whatsoever. I haven't used them that much yet, but haven't seen any problems with that. Did you have? Did you experience any issues? Did you experience anything bad with them? And if yes, which I reckon is the case, then what exactly happened? I'd be curious to know, to be prepared for potential challenges. Now I'll switch to a smaller brush just to get that paint in. Some of them rehydrate. Haven't really experienced that. Just make sure to give them a good shake, close them well. That should theoretically work, but if not, then maybe contact the company that you didn't get what you liked. It's actually, I was surprised. I recently found out that Army Painter is based in Europe. Its headquarters are in Denmark, so Northern Europe. And it's not a huge company, but it seems to be doing a good job of observing the trends on the hobby scene and responding to them appropriately by releasing a product which is competitively priced and has solid quality. Wow, that was really hard to get to that section under the left arm, but I made it. I've never really seen that with paint reactivating, but you mean that, okay, on the model. So it's after the painting process is done, if you see some changes in the color or in the way it covers the miniature, so does it crack, or that's surprising. Well, I certainly hope that it doesn't happen on any of the miniatures that I painted. That would be a shame. So there's the base coat. Super bright. Will be much, much darker, especially the feathers. So it looks like, doesn't look very elegant now, got to admit. So I think that next I should really work on the interior part of the cloak. Make sure that the paint doesn't pull too much and just keep on darkening it. Hmm. That's odd. Well, I mean, I will be applying them here, so I'll be able to comment on that if that's the case. Haven't really noticed that. Maybe you were unlucky, got a batch of paints which were not mixed with proper ingredients to ensure the right consistency. Wow, scraping paint off. That's really bad. Now, where did I use speed paints here? I used some on the lips, but that's too small area to really be affected by it. Hmm. Wow, so that surprises me that other people have been have had some negative experiences. I will jump out of the room in a second just to grab a hairdryer because I forgot to bring it. But it's in a room, it's a bathroom next to the room where I'm working from. So it's just a matter of literally 15 seconds and I'll be back. And I'm back with hairdryer. Hmm. Now I'll be very mindful. I'll be very mindful of that and observe the paints on the miniature carefully when I use them. And I will definitely let you know if I experience anything like that. For now, just cover your ears. It's going to be noisy. Oh, that could be the case. I mean, I contrast paints or speed paints, whatever you use, they lose a lot of their properties when you mix water in. Kind of breaks the pigment apart and doesn't work properly anymore. So what I will be doing now is I will be using turquoise shade, maybe this Luxian purple, yellow. I've been using yellow for sure, but I never really experienced it. I use a lot of contrast paints when I work on metallics. I like them for giving them the metallics a different finish. But that's odd. Now, darker purple, darker feathers, and that's definitely more purple. Now I can just paint the feathers without going onto the shirt. It's going to be a artistic color scheme. Clearly not a warrior-like figure, but then Malifa has models which have functions, and this is not a beater for sure. I will be using them over these miniatures for sure. So, but if I notice anything wrong, I would probably switch back to contrast, and I've been using predominantly the speed paints, so that surprises me. So that already looks more regal. It looks super shiny, super glossy at this point, but the paint becomes more matte when it dries. And besides, I use matte varnish, which also removes the shine. Hardened leather, yes, it's kind of yellowish brown. It's brighter than the Gore Granta fur from the contrast range, which I would typically use for getting this color. I definitely use the hardened leather on belt on Leviticus, the Pariah of Blood, pictures of which I uploaded earlier to my Instagram, and I like the effect. So the reason, again, one of the reasons that I chose this not too dark shade of purple was that I wanted to make sure that I can modify it. And if you apply too dark color to begin with, it's just hard to change the saturation. And if it's like this medium shade between something not too dark, not too bright, there's a lot you can do with that. I'm not the biggest fan of my video setup because I need to really look over the camera, but I'm working on finding a solution, and maybe not in my next stream in 2 weeks' time, but definitely in October, you will see some changes in my setup, which I hope will make for a much better viewer experience. Definitely, painter experience will be better, but I'm more concerned here with the viewer experience because at the end of the day, I'm painting for other people to follow, and if there is no good angle to follow, then it's not perfect. So again, filling in those recessed areas, not the easiest thing to do, but I just never really paint miniatures in sub assemblies because I just don't like it. I don't see the whole picture, and I need to see the whole picture. I need to see the whole canvas, so the whole miniature together, even if it makes some awkward angles that are hard to get to. I will still do it. And also now when I paint, some of the darker paint gets on the trousers, which is perfectly fine because this just gives me a clear map-like point of reference where the shaded areas should be, where the brighter ones should stay. Time for hair dryer. It just never ceases to amaze me why Games Workshop sticks to those pots that just don't work. Because what happens is that after a while the paint begins to gather around the lid, and it's hard to close it properly without scraping that off. As a result, the paint dries faster, or maybe that's the purpose. So to make sure the paint dries faster, and you need to get a new one. Now the shinish purple will come into play again, because I want to paint the interior part much darker. The base here is made from milliput mainly. It's actually made on top of a resin base, but I sculpted the area around it with milliput to make sure that it looks like it was as if it was custom made for Dorian, because it's a 40mm base. It's still a size 2 model, but it's larger. It's a model that can actually facilitate your crew, get some other pieces moving early on. So it's good for such facilitators to have larger base, because that way they can just impact more of your friendly models. That might require a second layer too. And now here's a good example of why I move gradually from medium shades of purple to dark shades of purple to pure black. So going from bright base coat to dark colors has this advantage that I can just control it and gradually work on the shaded areas so that it's nicely structured within the whole composition. So over the weekend I actually had an evening where I managed to sell my kids to grandparents for one evening. But I was so tired that day that all we could do with my wife was just watching TV shows, and so we ended up watching House of Dragon. Pretty cool show. We binge watched first 3 episodes, and that's quite good. Quite good. Some nice actors in there. I won't be spoiling anything for those of you who haven't watched it at all. But we already watched the 4th episode yesterday. Pretty good. Yeah, custom bases, especially when they make it look as if they were made to accommodate the miniature. Let me use the hairdryer for a second again, so sorry for the noise. Ooh, nice. So are you 3D sculpting? Because that's what you do, right? You 3D sculpt and print them or prepare the STL files. Is it some Malifaux stuff that you're sculpting now? It's nice. That's the same thing I like to do. Paint while watching other people's paint. And that's something that I'm definitely going to be doing tomorrow night, CET time, when Guslada, so Dag, will be streaming here as well. Brushing some Z's in ZBrush. Cool, cool. It's amazing how this hobby has developed and how much of empowerment there is to people who want to design something from home. I mean, all the software costs. It's not. I assume it's not free because I don't have not much knowledge in that area. But it's amazing when you think back, like 5 years ago. So most of the things you're able to do at home would not be there. I mean, in terms of hobby. So what I will do now, since I have this nice dark frame in the interior part of the cloak, I will do something like that on the back, but since it's a bit too dark, I will thin it down with long and medium. Well, hopefully it pays off when you have had a chance to design something and sell it and get some of your money back. But then it's not a cheap hobby. So again, darkening those feathers, it will get to the point where they will be pure black. Just selected areas. But what I'm really careful about is to make sure that he looks ridiculous because, come on, let's face it, it's like a ghost-like creature who is bored with everything, even when there is slaughter happening around and bodies are flying, people are dying. He just sits and is disgusted with the state of things around him. Yeah, that's what I would assume. It just pays off. Though it could be worse. You mean, think about if you were to become a dentist, just a basic specialist chair costs roughly the amount of money that you would pay for a good car, maybe a good new car. So there are some professions where you need to really overinvest initially. But the great thing is that you can actually get some money back. Well, I would hope more money back because it's, yeah, well, if it becomes a job, then you aim high from things that you enjoy doing, and that's a rare setup to be doing on a daily basis, something that you enjoy and something that I'm sure you appreciate. Okie dokie, so the feathers are getting there. RPG character. You mean like the progression of RPG character where you invest and develop? Right. So the feathers are more what that getting more towards what I want them to be. So now I reckon I will work on the suit because it's way too bright. And I can actually use Bolibus pink because it's this slightly purplish shade of pink or reddish purplish, and I can mix it with magenta. That's a lot. That's a lot more than I wanted, but that's fine. So the idea is to make this magenta more toned down, not that extremely bright and vivid. That's more like it. And now apply a layer or two, allowing each successive layer to dry, and that will allow me to solidify the base color and already change it into something a bit darker. I mean, maybe darker is not the right word, a bit more saturated. That's what I would mean by saying that. And that's time for another set of hairdryer. So some more hot air on the model, and it's turning more to what I want it to be. Let me just adjust my position on the table. So I want to look from above, not from below. So it's way more saturated, and it's nice thing is that when there is bright base coat, those extreme highlights stay there when you use brighter shades or speed paint or contrast paints. So those neat highlights remain, and that's great, because that's what I want to see. So it's now less pink, more magenta. But again, my lighting setup is not perfect here yet. It will be much better. I will try to lower the lamp. That's important as well. I need to keep it as it was. Let's see if I add additional light here. No, that's two different types of light, and that would interfere one with another. Okay, but it's the color is gradually shifting towards what I want it to be. So it's more about saturation rather than applying actual color at this point. So it's just a bit of a different approach. It's something that I don't think I would be able to do if I was painting from darker to brighter shades. Doesn't work that well then. And now I'm just mixing in that magenta with darker purple. And following along the recessed areas, just adding an extra touch of shade there. And it's just a different approach, because if I was painting from black base coat, that would be kind of the reverse process. I would need to isolate those darker areas at the beginning and then work towards brighter shades. And I'm doing the reverse now. And now some black lining. So making sure that the different sections of clothes are distinctly visible one from another. And at this point, it's definitely not pink anymore. But I can still saturate it, so apply pure magenta. But this time I will apply it to the, focusing more on the raised areas really. It's kind of filter. It enhances the structure of the highlights if you apply it a light glaze. So it doesn't really change the color, but it just adds this extra punch to the color. And yeah, that's more like what I would imagine it to be. For some reason, some nasty shades are creeping in, and it kind of distorts the image, which is not optimal. Maybe it's the colors that I use. I don't know why really it happens. But I guess now it's time to move on to those feathers and then get back to details. It looks like I think I'm pretty much sure that I will be able to complete this miniature over one stream. Maybe not the base coat. I mean, not the base coat, not the varnish. But so far so good. So now switching to one of my favorite colors. That's a wonderful shade of purple. I bought my first bottle of Vallejo game color with Hex, and it was like my first Vallejo color that I bought maybe 15 or so years ago. And I've been sticking to that. It's just wonderful, wonderful paint. Perfect color. And it will work here quite well. Of course, every couple years I need to restock, but it lasts a long time. So what I will do now is I will just apply it directly onto the feathers. I will just literally dry brush it to pick out all those, each single feather will become visible. And then I will do the reverse process and keep on darkening them. But for that I will need to switch to a different brush. I won't be able to achieve that kind of nice effect I have in mind by just using the dry brushing technique. So that's kind of bringing back the purple and making sure that this darker, much darker, almost black purple stays in the recessed areas, like in the crevices of the sleeves. I don't want to bring it out too much. And now it will be the process, because I will be darkening them. And the gloves will be very light, maybe even pure white. So that way there are some focal points around the face area. Still think I might give him a very light glaze of pure purple ink on the face, just to bring it all together. And let's do that now, in fact. Just a drop of purple. And we are approaching the middle of the stream. And that's been a steady progress. So thanks to those who have stuck around for a while. Those of you who joined, welcome. Painting the community choice, Dorian Crowe. Saying community choice because it was voted on the word place. But I depends on how excited I feel about the new Euripides, because I will likely pick up my box from a buddy later this week, and I will definitely assemble it because it's an extremely cool miniature, and I want to have it assembled quickly just to compare it to the previous version. And I will either start painting it straight away or wait until my next stream. I would say it's a 50-50 chance. But if not Euripides, I have quite a few other Malifaux Burns models, fairly new releases that I will be working on. I'm still hesitating whether to buy into some of the cool new releases. I'm very, very much tempted to buy some of the guild models. Oh yeah, I want to get him on the table too. I actually played one game against him. My buddy just proxied the whole crew. Well, not the whole crew. I just let him use mine, my giants, and I played It was some kind of very killy pool. I played Titania 1, and it was one of those games where the Emissar and Titania decided to kill everything. And of course, Assassinate was in the pool, but I mean, Euripides can be an amazing choice into models that rely on dropping schemes. My Euripides. So, Caris or Titania, because he just removes, he eats all those models, all those markers, and turns them into ice pillars. And that's great. So now it will be again time-consuming part, and gosh, I don't know why it's so dark. I will just switch it back and up again. Seems like camera is playing tricks on me. So at this point I want dark shade of purple, and I will be coloring those feathers one by one. So using a thinner brush and just outlining each of those feathers. Then I will go with pure black. Maybe I will, after that, I will do a dry brush of gray, because it's going to really add nice contrast, and then a couple of glazes, maybe washes of black ink. Just trying to meddle with the camera for the most optimal visibility, but all right, that's better, I think. It's just the issue is that when you paint with a lot of inks or washes, they are really glossy, and before they dry, they really don't look that great. Now the second sleeve. He just has this ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous cape. Awesome. Starter set. So did you get the other side hash slash Malifaux set with Guild and Neverborn? Because that's a big one, and that's a nice way to buy into the game for sure. Because you cannot just rely on dry brushing while working with hair or feathers, because then it picks out just the most recessed areas. And Lady Kachara, not sure I pronounce it correctly. Warm welcome. Definitely welcome to the best gaming online or gaming in general community. And trust me, I've been around a couple of communities, and generally it's a hobby that brings people like-minded people who just want to have quality time with plastic miniatures or paints or whatever it is, whichever aspect hobby they enjoy. So most of the time it's a nice experience, but when you factor in Mali for community, it becomes just an improved experience already. I've been playing Mali for a couple of years, 5, 6 maybe years. Can't remember exactly how many years. Competitively, less than that probably. Competitively around 5 years maybe a bit more. Hard to count, but I can maybe recall one game which was not a pleasant experience, and I've played probably around 100 games or more. All right, nice. Never gonna start the set. Collect curiosity, kill the cat. So that's some nice initial purchases. So which faction will you stick with? Sounds like you can get into 3 factions at this point. And the only reason that I had an unpleasant game was that it was an okay game, just the opponent was very stressed out, measuring some everything and double checking all the moves. Well, some people get this way, which is not that bad. But the thing is that it was a low scoring game. We probably played like 3 turns. And in my last activation, I was able to secure a minimal victory. And he just snapped and he just felt extremely miserable. And he was complaining to the TO and everything that seemed to be going fine during the game was all of a sudden a problem. But that was just one experience like that. And I don't think that guy plays Malifaux anymore. But beyond that, it's been a really good experience. And I played not only in my country, I also played in 3 international tournaments where I faced people from different nationalities, and it's always been a good experience. And that's a good choice, all right? Buying the models because you like them, fair enough. Buying the models because you like the look of them, that's a good enough reason to get them. Now I'll go to pure black on the feathers. Oh, the cat has woken up. Come, cat, say hello to the world. That's my cat, guys. That's my lovely, cute cat. He just woke up from a nap, which probably lasted several hours, and he's hungry, so he wants out. Go out, my friend. Goes to the kitchen food zone. I mean, that's a very good choice, right? Just stick with what you like. Because maybe 90% of the time, well, maybe depending on of course, the strategies for the game that you play, but most of the time you can make things work. There are just some models better suited for certain strategies than others, or schemes than others. But if you stick with what you like and really learn the keyword, so models from Colette, so performers, and start expanding that keyword, get more models like Carlos Vasquez or Howard Langston or other things that work well with Colette. You just learn your crew inside out, and then you have quite a few other masters, which each of the master brings something completely different. But as long as you know your crew inside out, you can compete against them. And if you don't know your own crew that well, it becomes a major challenge. And it takes a while. Oh yeah, play word for Mali poets. I mean, the Discord channel is a great place to start. And we have quite a lot of questions like I'm starting Master X, what should I get? And there are people always who will be happy to answer those questions. Mystique. Oh yes, it's another version of Carlos Vasquez. Very true. Yeah, so you don't need Carlos Vasquez anymore. And it's a great model. Super annoying when you play against him, but when you play Colette or Arcanist in general, and when you have Carlos Vasquez, you generally feel good about yourself. And Mystique is a really wonderful miniature. So now I think I will actually do some overbrushing on the feathers. And I will be mixing the bone white color with a light touch of purple. Just making sure it's barely visible before I start applying it. And after that I will decide whether I want those feathers defined this way or move back to shades of black. Or do both. So now we're just going a bit heavier close to the edges. So to make sure that those nicely defined feathers become actually visible. Models from travel, you're always so mysterious. Tell us more. What kind of models are those? Maybe something new, maybe something for Madness of Malifaux. I mean, we already know the masters, and it all looks super exciting. I love those new Bayou models. They're so wacky. I mean, they look like the epitome of what Bayou is all about. So just wacky, fun and wacky. And of course, it would be interesting to see what kind of setup, how they are released. We know that the Ling Li will come with Damien Ravencroft box. That's I think it'll be interesting to see how other models are released. So the feathers are kind of defined now. Maybe even a very light overbrush towards the edges would be fine here. So getting towards the end of the second hour of the stream, and I'm feeling pretty good about chances of finishing this model tonight. It's a tonight for me because it's almost 11 p.m. here, which is more or less the time when I usually paint, when the kids are asleep. And I know that I can spend at least an hour or two of quality time painting. So it doesn't take much to set up. I just have everything. I have everything handy, but the right mindset, is crucial. Now let's mix some purple ink. Maybe not this one. This one, purple tone, with black glaze, which should be somewhere out there. Oops. Not this one. Cannot seem to find the right bottle. It was here just a moment ago. Of course, it was right in front of me. Null oil. So these two will be now mixed. I will just take a small base. And a larger brush, maybe not a large one, but a slightly bigger, just to make sure that I apply it thoroughly. That one will do. So it's this dark purplish black shade. Because now that I've highlighted the feathers, I can bring them back into coherent purple range of colors, coherent with the overall design that I have in mind. And I will darken the areas closer to the sleeves where the feathers are attached. And that way, again, more of a coherent structure and the color scheme. And time for some more hair dryer. Some of the paint pulled in the recessed areas. I will just drag it out and distribute it over the areas which are partly dried now. And again, a bit of paint pulling here and here and here. How did it became muted? I can now use a bit of Achelian green. Because when you think about feathers of ravens or crows, which are black, they aren't really black when you look at them, because they reflect light in the most wonderful way, and they feel more like blue or green. So that's what I'm going with here. Then there will be another dry brush and maybe one more glaze to bring it all together. I'll just apply some of the green as well, maybe yellow, just to make it look like, just to kind of enrich it. Because once you start applying dry brush, the kind of starts becoming to look a bit two-dimensional, too much two-dimensional. Sure, Doug. Take care and see you tomorrow. Hello again, my bluff. Our dandy woe is progressing nicely, getting some turquoise and soon green, maybe actually blue hints in the feathers. It's just this stage where if I pushed things, I could probably finish this model within 30 minutes, but that's the moment where I can really play around with it, fine tune some elements, add a unusual shade here and there just to make it look a bit richer. Pink, pink might be a nice touch, but blue wouldn't really be that much of a change because it would look very similar to the turquoise shade. So maybe green. For green, I will choose, or green could be? No, I'll go with warp lightning because it's a bit warmer shade. I think that actually for joining Malifaux community or and really getting into the game, game firsthand now. It's not a bad time because a lot. I mean, Mali for Burns hasn't been around for that long yet, so a lot of it is still new. I mean, you can play all the releases on Vassal, but those models that have not been released yet, well, some people proxy them, use other models, but generally when they are available in brick and mortar stores, then you can talk about them having impact on local meta or even international meta. And there's plenty more coming, plenty, with the new book. And when there's plenty new stuff, it's new to newcomers and to veterans. So maybe it's not equal ground that they're standing on, but at least there is this momentum for the game and community to latch onto. So now I think another quick dry brush would be a good idea. But this time more focused towards the edges. So I'll grab a smaller brush for dry brushing. And again, keep on highlighting trying to just pick the edges. And then I think I will give it maybe not a glaze, but just try to focus on just some of the areas and bring them to darker range of color again. Time for black wash again. This time I will actually use maybe some lemon medium just to thin it down a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit. And that way the black brings it all together, but the turquoise and greenish touches are still visible. I will use a hairdryer in a second just to speed up the drying process. And again, I will add a little bit more. I will go a little bit heavier closer to the sleeves where the feathers are attached, just to work on this gradual transition. Looks like he's wearing a feathery rainbow now, which is just fine. But as I dry the areas, I also notice where the paint begins to pool, and I can move it around, redistribute it. So just to think that less than 2 hours ago, this miniature was just pure white. And now it's getting some nice color in. So there we are. Still, I feel like I can lightly push the edges, but I will do that later on. Or I can just use a different brush for that. Clearly don't want to overdo it. So this is a nice dry brushing brush. It's got this very thick bristle, and it's nice for making this rotating movements onto the model, just to make sure I get most of the paint off. Testing on the finger is always a good idea. Just lightly try to focus like on this upper arm. Upper forearm, again forearm here. Some light touches towards the lower section. A bit of heavier touch towards the back. And now the underpainting of those sections in turquoise and yellow and green really becomes visible. I will show it to you in a second. Just let me kind of move around the paint dust that seems to have come off. So what happens now is that we have a nicely defined structure of feathers with hint of turquoise or green below. And I may actually go one step further even and just use the Hive Dweller purple, which is fairly dark purple from speed paint range. And I will just apply it directly into the recessed areas, just to create a bit more of contrast. This will make the structure seem to go deeper and deeper. All right, teach some kids some taekwondo. Cool. Take care. Have fun. There's a saying that break a leg, right? To wishing someone good luck, but like I don't think that would be the most appropriate thing to say, but just have fun. Seems like you're a person of many talents. And teaching kids taekwondo is definitely a great initiative. So my older daughter has recently started judo classes, I mean, maybe it's too much to say that she has recently started because she just went to one class, loved it, and wants to continue. And it's great when kids want physical activity and kind of crave it. And I'm fine spending my hard-earned money on that because I can't think of a better area in my life to invest into than my kids. Well, then my hobby and other elements, house renovations. It's like you cannot invest too much into any of those spheres. So now I'm kind of redefining the structure of feathers with a touch of dark purple in between feathers, just singling them out. And you might ask, why not black? Well, not black because that color is dark enough and it nicely alienates each single section from one another while kind of sticking to the overall color scheme. So it adds this deepening of shadows without really interfering with the overall color structure. And all of a sudden it has become really dark. Oh, thank you. She loved it. She loved judo and she loved the interactive nature of it. They were playing actually football, what the American people tend to refer to as soccer, but they played while walking on their hands and on the feet. So generally you sit and you just lift your body with your arms and legs and you kick the ball. Seems like it could be exhausting, but kids were very much into it. There's still this nasty glow on the pink suit, but I mean, it's magenta, it's not pink. Looks super pink, but it's magenta, trust me. Trust me, I'm the painter. So now I guess I will do the shirt and the tie, then the gloves, and then I reckon I can do the shoes and maybe then start working on the base. Let's see. For now, let's do the shirt. It's mostly just the color visible, but I will still go with a hint of white mixed with pink. Not talking much because I'm just working with the tip of my brush. Feels like if I talk, I can easily make a mistake. No mistakes are the ones that cannot be fixed, really, but why make mistakes if you can avoid them? Now let's get some pure white, which was somewhere around here. And the paints are cluttered here. There it is. Oh, it's the right place. Just a very light touch of pure white. And we are already in the third hour of the stream. Time flies by. I think that I generally paint a bit slower than I do in the streams, because I'm never really confined by a specific amount of time spent on painting, and here I just try to push as much as I can within those 3 hours that I get to spend interacting with you wonderful people on the other side of the chat. Okay, those are some feathers as well here that could use some touch-ups. I can actually just use the white to really just put a small dot on the tip of some of the wings, of some of the feathers, maybe not all of them, but some. Just to further boost the structure of them. And maybe right arm as well. I mean left arm. Or the right arm from the other side. It's different than dry brushing, because with dry brushing I would put paint on larger sections, and here I can just pinpoint narrow areas for highlights. So for the tie, I will use just what I will use, maybe Sakura purple. So it's again this kind of glossy dark purple shade that should match well with other colors I have. Maybe a bit of it on the vest as well, just to keep this area a little bit darker. And now onto the gloves. Yes, I guess I'll do the gloves now. So before I actually start applying color, I will reapply Raven as a base color. And I'm thinking bright white should work well. There is this cigar that he's holding as well. Let's not forget about it. Right. And trust me, the vest looks much, much better in real life. And the suit, it's just super glowy. For some reason, it's just. I have invested. I've bought a new lamp. It's actually on the pre-order, so I won't get it until late September or even early October. So hopefully that will allow me to distribute the light better for daily work and for streaming work. Yeah, I think I will push the dark purple on the vest a bit further. And for the gloves, I will use aromatic blue. And once it dries after applying, I will highlight it with white, and that will give it some fun diversification in the color scheme. And then of course the cane has to be golden. If it's purple, then the cane gets to be golden. There's only that's the only way to go. Time for some hair dryer. Apologies for the noise in advance. And I will also use it to push the dark purple on the vest a little bit more. All right, that's way darker. I can actually use just white both on the gloves now and just to kind of redefine the edges of the vest. And now slightly thin it down, apply it to the gloves. Because I want them to be white, of course, but I want them to have this hint of light blue. So time for white now. and just touching the knuckles, not covering the whole area of each finger. And I guess it's time for cigar and the cane shortly after. Maybe I'll also repeat the tip of the vest. Yep, cigar time now. I'll just clean up because the paints that are not going to be used feels like they are just cluttering my workspace. And I can put them aside, at least for a while. Just do that. I just begin to feel uncomfortable when there are too many of them around me. And it just takes too much time to find the one that I need straight away. So a quick cleanup, and while cleaning up I had this idea that I might actually use some lemon medium and give a glaze. So by glaze I mean a thin down contrast paint, very much thin down to the gloves, just to make sure that they are brighter, but they stay slightly bluish. Yep, time for the cigar. So for that I will grab, I'm looking for Gorgranta fur. Or maybe darker brown. No, Gorgranta fur should be fine here. Seems like a good choice. You just need a thinner brush. Maybe it should be a bit darker, but no, it's contrastive enough. But then the tip will be pure white, because I want to make it look as if he is actually smoking it now, not just holding it. So some Psycho Brown just to push the brown a bit further. Now that I have pure white, I will use Amarillo Fluo, so Fluo Yellow. And again, from game color range, I've restocked on that paint at least 2 times because I use it so much. Really easy to use, easy to apply, just interacts with other surfaces super well. So just try to make it look like there is a glow of cigarette. And for that I will also use blazing orange. Just add a tiny dot of it. You don't want to overdo, because if the dot becomes too much, then the yellow part is not visible anymore. Let me just blow some hot air on it. And a touch of red. And that will do it for the cigarette or cigar. Actually, add a very light touch of Mornpoint brown. Just to boost it a little bit. And again, I will just very, very lightly bring some more white here. That is a bizarre miniature for sure. Now, is he wearing a gold chain on the suit? Yes, there is. Indeed, it is gold chain. Good thing I noticed it. So when I will be painting the cane, I will need to make sure I pick up the details on the golden chain on the vest. Well, it's an elegant dandy, so he should wear some gold, I reckon. Makes sense. So entering the final stretch of the stream, last 30 minutes coming up shortly, which I believe will be enough time to allow me to put some finishing touches, maybe even use some dry pigment and some special effects. And again, rotate your miniature. I cannot stress it enough. Look at it from different angles. And I will actually use tiger brown to define the area where the shoes are, which is not that important really, because they will be covered with some dry pigment anyway and won't be that visible. Thinking maybe even of some swamp-like effects, because I have it going for most of my Neverborn. So there may be some murky water. Yes, I still need to make sure that there is darker base coat before I apply gold to the chain. And it's easy to miss it. Now let's grab some gold. And for gold, there isn't that much of brand loyalty when I think about my paints. I rather stick to those that work well for me. And for gold, those are the colors that I typically use. So brass, glorious gold, model color, game color. Slightly different shades, but both work extremely well when applied directly. And for the brass gold, I will mix it slightly with brown ink. And the chain first, and now the elegant cane that he's casually leaning on. Who uses golden cane? Clearly something that's meant to be used as an kind of attribute to, well, in a way, elevate yourself. So some glorious gold now. Just painting some thin horizontal lines, and then I will gradually try to work on a smaller, narrower area. And now maybe mithril silver. Mixed with some burnished, with some glorious gold. So it's not really pure silver, it's just very, very light gold. And there we are, 2.5 hours. 30 minutes to go. Not rushing, but feeling pretty confident I will be able to finish this miniature before the end of the stream, which is something that I typically aim to do. unless it's a very complex miniature. Now to bring it together, I can actually use some yellow, and I may use, or maybe some lighter yellow. Wow, resolution to make yourself paint. Good, good. Would be nice if you could combine watching streams with painting, but it can be challenging if you have couple dozen tasks pending and things flying around you. But do that. Paint something. Paint something, right? That sounds like a feasible objective in itself. But that's good. Now there are just monitoring the time to make sure I have enough to actually get it done. That should be doable. Now, for the base, I have clearly some pieces of wood. So for those, I will use Zealot Yellow. And some brown. Just putting aside colors that I want to use again today, so that I have clear overview of what needs to happen. And what needs to happen is that base needs to get some color. Actually, I think that next time I paint in the stream, I should get the base down, because it kind of locks the miniature better in focus, I believe. So that's an area for improvement, which I will address in 2 weeks' time. Painting, I have no idea what. I'll do my best to paint something from Mali for Burns, so that it's something fairly new. Could be Euripides 2, could be Pandora 2, could be McCabe 2. Maybe I'll just paint Nexus. I have quite a few miniatures lying around, some assembled, some not. So it is a bit of a dilemma. But not something that I'm too worried about. There is a leaf here. And before I actually paint the area on the base, I need to reblock the colors with Wraithbone, because otherwise they will just blend in with the cloak. to stretch out a little bit. Now, I will blow some hot air on it. That kind of does look like a peacock. And time for basilica gray. That will be applied across the whole base. I will add a light touch of brown to it. Then allow it to dry, speed it up with hair dryer, then apply its few touches of different colors like green, maybe yellow or brown. Just making sure I cover and there is no white base coat showing through. I think it's a lesson learned for me that I should actually start the stream with at least base color applied to the base of the base color applied to the base, right? Because then it just seems that my camera reacts better to it and has less of a problem putting it into solid focus. Now some area towards the back here. Cleaning the brush. And some hot air. And now I can go with black burr. Kind of stipple it in. By stipple it in, I just mean just apply a few seemingly random spots of green. And then maybe a few brown. For that I'll use snakebite leather. Not even cleaning the brush, just applying snakebite leather directly. some dry brush. Cleaning the brush. And maybe a little bit of magenta, because I still saw a spot towards the back which I might have missed. This actually looks like, I typically take pictures of miniatures in the morning because light tends to be the most favorable at that time of day. So, who knows? Maybe I'll take a picture of it tomorrow. I just look around for a few areas that I can still improve here. I think I can still tweak the feathers a little bit. Then I'll apply dry pigment to the base and to part of the cloak. Or actually I can do some kind of fun effect to add to this ghostly feel. I might do that. I will actually do that. Just got an idea. So what I will do is I will just add a kind of thin separation line with thin down ivory color below the cloak. And then I will push some pure white underneath it, and then add some kind of glow-like effect, just to add to this ghostly notion that, yes, after all, it's an incorporeal being that walks through terrain. Let's just get some cold arrows. Underneath here. Maybe even underneath here as well. Looks messy now, just like a blob of white that for some reason ended up below the model. And now let me just dive in and grab some pigment. I'm thinking either fluo yellow or
think might not be a bad choice.
So which one of these three should I go for? That's the question. No, it's splash gel. I'm not putting a gel on that for sure. Other one of these three. One of these three effects, and I'm thinking that maybe I'll go with yellow. Yellow seems like a good call to me. Or green. Actually, no, yellow should work better with. Should work better. Let's just make an assumption that this is a better choice. We just prepare the rain around it, take it out from the holder, and prepare a mixture. So that's, I'm not sure if this is the intended use, but that's how I've been using these pigments. So I just apply some of it to the base. Well, you can apply it to anything, it doesn't have to be a base. Then add a few drops of water, clear water preferably, you don't want dirty water. And my bottle of water is really filthy at this point after 3 hours of painting purples. And just mix it in. Mix the pigment with water. And then apply this wet mixture to the area which I coated with pure white. Because it will stay extremely vibrant in the area which had been whiter before and somewhat muted around it. So it's like fast, easy way of doing what's generally referred to as OSL, so object source lighting. So I'm kind of doing some hobby cheating now, but I mean, it's not cheating if you admit that you're doing it right. And besides, the intention is just to, I'm not saying you shouldn't use the traditional all object source lighting approach, which is super time consuming and extremely challenging from technical standpoint. That's just a way that you can consider using if you want nice effect. And that effect is pretty cool. I may even go, one step further. What I will do, I may regret it, but you only, well, Yopo, you only paint once. Not YOLO, but Yopo. I'll just add some streaks of white in the folds of the cloak. I will bring them towards the base, and then I will apply some pigment on them, just to make him better grounded. That's how I would phrase it. Better grounded with what we have going on the base. And there will be more of this ghostly sense to it. Yeah, I know those are final minutes of the stream. Just well, 8 minutes to go. So I don't need to rush. 8 minutes is plenty of time. So just a couple more minutes. Now I'll just speed up the drying. And I will apply this fluorescent yellow to the back. And now in order to remove the excess of paint, I'll just use a heavy dry brush with a brush that is actually dry. Like this one here, or the one that I had used before. I'll just wipe off the excess of paint. Maybe one with that one is too soft. This one feels better. Yep, that's my Instagram. Just uploaded picture of finished Leviticus Pariah of Blood earlier today, which was a super fun model to paint. And you can get it in a box with Soul Battery and Lynch. I mean, it's not alternative, it's just titled version, so it's like this new version. So at first glance, it looks like a bit like Human, but then let me just do one more final thing before I call it a wrap. I'll just paint the rim of the base black, and then I will showcase the model properly, and then I can call it a wrap for the night. So I thought I would be able to do it because it's not a model that requires thousands of different colors. It's just predominantly purple with some black, and I use some yellow to just really give it this extra punch of color. And besides, this model will be used with my Pandora Crowe, which is full of green and vivid shades. So I wanted to make it to match it to the color that I used for the rest of the crew. Maybe it's an overstatement, but I should say to the models which I will be using when I will eventually start playing Pandora 2. Maybe Pandora 1, but Pandora 2 seems to be like this hot thing that everyone who plays Neverborn is getting crazy about. Let me just clean the brush. One more sip of water and time for a final showcase. I mean, not final because it will still get some varnish on it, because it will lose all the gloss that it has. So that's Dorian Crowe from the Neverborn faction, painted over the last 3 hours. It's a mixture of dandy, woe, and it's got some weird stuff at the back. because it's a ghost. It's essentially like a ghost. So guys, thank you for following the stream, all of you who were here and who will check it out later on. Remember to check in the same time tomorrow, because Doc will be painting some cool stuff, some cool Malifaux stuff. Make sure to check in and have a wonderful rest of the day, rest of the evening. Take care, keep on painting, and see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you. Goodbye.